I pulled into our driveway just past 9 p.m., headlights grazing over the flower bed Casey kept saying she was going to redo someday. The porch light was on, as always. She liked the way it made the house look warmer from the street. Normal. Inviting. And from the outside, that's exactly what it was. A neat little two-story colonial with navy shutters and a welcome mat that had faded to illegibility. A good home, lived in and loved? Except I hadn't just returned from Seattle like I told her. My suitcase in the back seat had never made it past a rented hotel room on Lincoln Street, less than 10 minutes from here. I'd been staying in town. Watching. Waiting. Wondering. My business trip had been nothing more than a controlled lie, and while it left a sour taste in my mouth, I needed answers more than I needed to feel righteous. She didn't hear me coming. When I walked in, Casey was curled up on the couch, legs tucked beneath her, phone tilted just out of sight. She looked up and smiled when the door clicked shut behind me, wide, glowing, theatrical. Like a performance she'd rehearsed. "Hey, stranger," she chirped, springing up. Her arms flew around my shoulders, warm and effortless, like I hadn't felt her growing colder for weeks. I hugged her back, though not too tightly. I didn't want to tip my hand. "You're back early," she said, brushing a hand through her hair, which was styled in waves she only wore for special occasions. I knew that because I remembered the first time she did it, our wedding day. "Caught an earlier flight," I lied, slipping my duffel off my shoulder and setting it gently by the stairs. "How was Vermont?" "Oh my God," she said, laughing breathlessly. "It was amazing. You would have hated it. Zero Wi-Fi, no coffee shops, like real disconnect from the world vibes. But the lake was beautiful and the energy there," she trailed off, her eyes dreamy. "Transformative." She wore a silk dress I didn't recognize. Deep emerald. Draped low at the back. A luxury brand tag peeked out from her scarf on the hallway hook. Her skin had that golden tone she only picked up after long hours in the sun, not the pale flush I expected from a weekend in the Vermont woods. "We did these sunrise meditations on the dock," she continued, scrolling through her phone now. "And this one workshop, intentional silence, where we couldn't talk for 6 hours straight. It was so hard at first, but it really cleared my head." She looked different. Not just the tan or the dress, but the way she carried herself. Like something inside her had been sparked back to life. I'd seen that version of her before, but not in a long time. Not since our honeymoon in Puerto Vallarta, when she danced barefoot on the sand and kissed me under fireworks. I hadn't realized until this moment just how long it had been since I'd seen her like that, radiant. Weightless. "I'm glad it was good for you," I said, offering the kind of half-smile that passes as sincerity when you've been married for nearly a decade. "Oh, it was," she said quickly. "Too quickly. I didn't want to leave, honestly." She flipped her phone screen down on the kitchen counter as she moved to pour herself a glass of red wine. Not her usual cab. Something new. The label was French and expensive. Another detail. Another deviation. "You want one?" she asked. "No, I'm good," I said, eyes trailing her movements. The way she opened the drawer and pulled out the corkscrew felt rehearsed, deliberate. Not sloppy, not rushed, careful. Everything about her was careful now. She talked more about the retreat. About bonfires and nature walks. About the women she met, Heather, who was going through a divorce, and Lana, who had recently sold her tech startup and was learning to let go of things she can't control. Casey described each of them with the casual familiarity of someone who had memorized a script. She showed me a few photos. Mostly of trees, the lake, group sh*ts with women I didn't recognize, always fully clothed, always smiling. No pictures of the cabin. None of her by herself. Every sh*t looked curated. Clean. Controlled. She laughed as she scrolled, and I mean really laughed. That same laugh I fell in love with, a little wild, a little unfiltered. But it didn't reach her eyes. Not really. It was like she knew she had to laugh that way because that's what I remembered. Because that's what I wanted to see. I let her talk, let her fill the silence with idyllic descriptions and soothing lies. She didn't ask much about my trip, but then again, she never really had. My travel for work was routine. Predictable. She probably thought I had become predictable too. What she didn't know was that I had driven by the house 3 times over the weekend. I had seen her coming and going. I had seen the Uber she took Friday night and the black sedan that picked her up Saturday morning. I had tracked the geotag from her Instagram story to a hotel bar in Boston, not a cabin in Vermont. I had already seen the dress she was wearing tonight, in a picture someone else had posted. I wasn't looking for a fight. Not yet. What I wanted was the truth. But she wasn't ready to give it, and I wasn't ready to force it. Not until I had everything in front of me. Facts. Timelines. Motives. Patterns. So I smiled. I nodded. I leaned in when she kissed my cheek. I told her I was tired, and I let her tuck herself under my arm as we watched reruns on Netflix, her fingers absently stroking mine. I let her pretend everything was exactly as it used to be. I went to bed next to her that night the way I always did. But sleep didn't come easy. She turned her back to me, breathing steady, lips slightly parted, peaceful, dreaming of something or someone else. I stared at the ceiling, heart racing in a rhythm I hadn't felt since the night before our wedding. But it wasn't nerves this time. It wasn't joy. It was the knowledge that the life I thought we had was already unraveling. Quietly, carefully, thread by thread. And I was the only one who noticed. The next morning started like any other. Casey was already up, making coffee. I heard the familiar gurgle of the machine, the soft clinking of mugs, and her quiet hum. That airy tune she always reverted to when she didn't want to think too hard about anything. Some Fleetwood Mac song, probably. Her voice was light, distant. It floated through the hallway like nothing had changed. But I had changed. I stayed in bed a little longer than usual, pretending to scroll my phone, pretending I hadn't spent most of the night awake beside her, replaying her every word, gesture, and look from the night before. Her laugh, that dress, her perfectly rehearsed lake retreat story. I knew her. I'd known her for 10 years. And what I saw last night, that wasn't her. Not the one I married. By the time I made it downstairs, she was seated at the breakfast bar, legs crossed, flipping through something on her phone. The screen dimmed automatically as I walked in, like it sensed the tension. She turned it over before I could glance again. "Morning," she said, her voice casual. "Coffee's fresh." "Thanks," I murmured, pouring myself a cup. She leaned against the counter, elbow propped, staring at me like she was trying to gauge something. Maybe how much I knew, or maybe I was just projecting. I didn't want to start a fight, but the weight of everything I'd seen was suffocating. She tapped her phone once, twice, then stood up. "I have some calls this morning. Mind if I use the office?" I shrugged. "Go ahead." She smiled, kissed my cheek, and disappeared down the hallway. I stood there for a minute, just watching the empty doorway. Something about the way she touched me. Quick, light, a kiss for protocol, not affection. I knew the difference. I used to feel it. The day dragged. She spent most of it in the home office, door closed. Said she was catching up on work she missed during the retreat. Her voice floated through the walls occasionally. Laughter, low conversations. Always muffled. Always distant. I tried to stay occupied. Answered a few work emails. Watered the plants. Even folded some laundry just to keep my hands busy. But my thoughts were elsewhere. I kept seeing her with that glow, the one she wore last night. I hadn't seen it in months, and I wasn't sure if it stung more because I knew it wasn't for me, or because she hadn't even tried to fake it anymore before this trip. Over the next few days, the cracks started to widen. Not in any dramatic way. Casey wasn't reckless. She was calculated, careful. But when you know someone's patterns long enough, even the smallest shift feels seismic. First, it was the phone. She started taking it with her everywhere. Into the bathroom, into the laundry room, into the backyard, where she'd stand barefoot with her back turned, phone glued to her ear, pretending to be checking on a friend from the retreat. But every time I walked out, she ended the call. Every single time. She also started leaving the phone screen side down. Always. It was little things like that. The subtle ways people change when they've got something to hide. Or someone. I started watching her closer. Not because I wanted to, but because I couldn't not. The secrecy clung to her like perfume. She began dressing differently, too. More deliberate. More curated. One afternoon, she came downstairs in a white blouse and high-waisted skirt I hadn't seen before. Subtle, elegant, expensive. Not her usual laid-back style. Caught me off guard. "You going somewhere?" I asked. "Just running errands," she said, grabbing her keys. Thought I'd treat myself and look cute. I didn't push it. I just nodded. But the second she left, I pulled up her credit card history. Not because I was trying to trap her. I just needed to know if I was going crazy. There it was. Several recent purchases from a boutique I knew she'd never been in before. It wasn't her kind of place. She used to make fun of the women who shopped there. Said they paid double for half the material. Now she was one of them. And then there was the lingerie. It showed up by accident. I was folding laundry on a Thursday morning. Something we always did together before. A weird little ritual of ours. And as I was sorting through the basket, I found a black lace thong. Delicate, unfamiliar. Something she'd never worn with me. Still had the tag tucked inside. First, I thought maybe it was new. A surprise. Hope flickered. Maybe she bought it for me. Maybe she wanted to reconnect. But the hope evaporated quickly, because I couldn't ignore the pattern. The dress. The glow. The secrets. The growing emotional distance. That same night, I reached out to Jeremy, a friend from college, now a private investigator. I didn't go into all the details. Just told him I needed eyes on Casey. Told him I hoped I was wrong. He didn't ask why. He just said, "I'll handle it." Over the next few days, the distance between us became a chasm. We slept in the same bed, but it felt like we were miles apart. She was quiet, soft-spoken, evasive. She asked about my day less, answered questions with one-word replies. She didn't kiss me goodbye when she left. And when I kissed her, she turned her face slightly so my lips caught her cheek. One night, I tried to hold her, just to feel close again. She pulled away. "Not tonight," she said. "I'm just not in the mood." She didn't even look at me when she said it. I laid back in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying our last real conversation in my head. I couldn't remember when it was. Everything lately had been filler, soft noise, surface dialogue. Two people pretending to be a couple. I remembered our wedding night, how she pulled me into the hotel room with both hands, grinning like she'd just stolen the moon. I remembered how she danced in the kitchen when we moved in together, barefoot, wine-drunk, her playlist blaring through the Bluetooth speaker. I remembered the first time she cried in front of me. The first time I told her I loved her. The first time she said it back. Whispered, terrified, but certain. Now she couldn't even meet my eyes. I wasn't looking for a fight. I wasn't looking to play detective. But it felt like I was standing in the ruins of something we'd spent years building, and only one of us noticed the smoke. So I waited. I waited for Jeremy's call. For evidence. For a sign. But deep down, I already knew. You don't need photographs to confirm when something's dead. You just feel it. Like the weight of a lie sitting next to you in bed, pretending to be asleep. It happened on a Sunday. Casey was in the shower, humming that same airy tune again. Something about the way she sang lately bothered me. Too light, too easy, too false. I listened to the sound of water hitting tile as I stood in our bedroom, eyes locked on her suitcase. It sat half-zipped in the corner, next to the dresser, just like she'd left it when she came home from the retreat. I hadn't touched it. Not until now. I moved slowly, deliberately. My fingers hovered over the zipper before I pulled it back. Inside was exactly what you'd expect from a weekend away. Leggings, folded tops, her favorite chamomile tea sachets. But something about the way it was packed felt staged. Too perfect. Too clean. I dug deeper, pressing past the shirts until my hand brushed something small and rigid. A box. It was matte black, the kind that expensive jewelry or perfume might come in. Tucked just beneath a silky scarf I didn't recognize, it felt completely out of place. I opened it. Inside was a set of black lingerie, delicate lace and thin straps. Not yoga gear. Not sleepwear. Not something you wear for lake meditations in Vermont. My chest tightened. I held it in my hand for a second, not out of curiosity, but to feel the weight of what I was about to confirm. Buried beneath the lace was a small folded note, cream-colored paper with her handwriting. I knew her script like I knew her voice, clean, elegant, unhurried. I unfolded it. "You drive me wild." Counting the days until the next night. That was it. Just one sentence. But that was all it took. My heart stopped. My body didn't. I set the box down slowly, carefully. Not like it was fragile, like I stood there, stunned, hearing the sound of running water in the bathroom like it was coming from another world. My wife. The woman who told me she needed space to reconnect with herself had written a love note, and it wasn't for me. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the floor, unsure whether to scream, cry, or laugh. I did none of those things. Instead, I reached for her phone. It was still sitting on the nightstand, screen down just like always. Locked. But Casey had never changed the passcode. It was still our wedding date, a choice that once felt romantic, now cruelly ironic. I typed it in. The phone unlocked. The first thing I noticed was the wallpaper, a photo of the lake. Safe. Serene. Staged. I opened the Messages app. At first, everything looked normal. Friends. Group chats. Her mom. Then I scrolled further. A name I didn't recognize immediately popped out. Ryan. Just Ryan. No last name. No emojis. No profile photo. Just that, Ryan. I clicked it. And there it was. A thread of messages, a lot of them. Most recent at the top. Ryan, still can't get over that last night. I can still feel your hands. Casey, me too. I needed that more than you know. Ryan, I've missed you. Vermont was way too long. Casey, at least we made it count. You're all I think about. Each message was another nail in the coffin. Then came the photos. I tapped one, heart pounding. It was her unmistakably standing in front of a full-length mirror. That same lingerie from the box. Her face partially hidden behind her phone. She was in a hotel room. I could tell from the carpet, the generic lamp behind her, the tiny complimentary water bottle on the nightstand. Not our bedroom. Not anywhere near Vermont. There were more. One of her lying on a bed, sheets barely covering her. Another, blurry and close, of someone's hand gripping her waist. That wasn't me. My breath caught in my throat. I felt sick. But I kept scrolling. Ryan, you wearing it for me again next time? Casey, already packed. You better be ready. The most recent message was timestamped 2 days ago. I sat there, reading them again and again like the repetition might dull the pain. It didn't. Each word cut deeper than the last. When the shower stopped, I snapped out of it. I locked the phone and placed it exactly where I found it, screen down, no fingerprints, no hint of what I'd seen. I didn't want to tip her off. Not yet. I grabbed my car keys and told her I was running to the store. I drove aimlessly for an hour, gripping the steering wheel like it was the only thing keeping me grounded. My mind was spinning, a loop of images, words, betrayal. You drive me wild. Still feel your hands. Packed. You better be ready. I could still hear her voice from last night, laughing at something on her phone while we sat on the couch. She'd smiled like she was thinking of me. But it was never me. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay beside her, listening to her breathe, feeling like I was trapped next to a stranger. She slept peacefully like someone without a care in the world. Like someone who had no idea her world was about to change. I stared at the ceiling again. Cold. Numb. Distant. The kind of stillness that doesn't come from peace but from pressure. Pressure to stay silent. Pressure to pretend. But that was the last night I was going to pretend. The next morning I made a call. Jeremy picked up on the second ring. I need everything, I said. Phone records. Photos. Where she goes. Who she meets. I want it all. There was a long pause on the line before he said, got it. I'll be in touch. And just like that, I'd taken the first step toward a truth I already knew but needed to see for myself. I couldn't unsee the messages. I couldn't forget the photos. I couldn't unfeel that moment when everything I believed in snapped beneath me like a brittle branch. But I wasn't going to confront her with assumptions. I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of spinning a lie I couldn't disprove. This time I wanted facts. Proof. Undeniable. Inarguable. Final. So I waited. And watched. Like she had done to me while she smiled across the dinner table and held my hand in front of friends, telling them how lucky we were. How much she loved her life. I wonder if she ever believed her own words. Because I had. Until now. I didn't confront her the next morning. Or the day after that. That was the hardest part. Knowing what I knew, seeing what I'd seen, and still acting like everything was normal. Like I wasn't falling apart every time she laughed at her phone or kissed me on the cheek with that same mouth that had whispered God knows what to Ryan. But I kept my mouth shut. Not out of cowardice, but calculation. If she wanted to play a game, I'd play to win. So I doubled down. I smiled. I listened to her stories. I asked about her clients and coworkers and the new branding project she claimed was eating up her evenings. I let her think I believed every word. Let her feel safe. That week, Jeremy delivered. He met me in person in a parking garage 2 towns over. It felt dramatic, but I didn't want any chance of Casey catching wind. He handed me a flash drive and a plain manila folder, no labels, no markings. Just the truth. I didn't open it there. I waited until I was home alone, door locked, laptop open on the desk we used to share. The first image hit me like a hammer to the ribs. Casey. In a bar I recognized, downtown Boston, upscale, sleek. She was laughing. Head tilted back, hair falling over one shoulder, wearing that same green dress she wore the night I came home from Seattle. Ryan was next to her. Mid-30s. Clean cut. Tanned like he spent more time in golf carts than meetings. They looked comfortable. An asterisk mate. Like this wasn't new. Like it was routine. The next photo was worse. Them walking out together. Her arm looped through his. Her head leaning toward his shoulder. Then another from a hotel lobby. Same night. Her hand on his back as they waited at the elevator. I clicked play on the attached video file. Grainy black and white. Security camera footage from a hallway. The elevator door opened. They stepped out talking. Laughing. Then, right there in frame, he kissed her. Full. Lingering. Like he owned her. She kissed him back. They walked to a door. Room 924. She unlocked it. He followed her in. The door shut. End of footage. I sat still for a long time. Then I played it again. I needed to memorize it. To burn every second into my brain so I'd never second-guess what came next. Jeremy had included timestamps. Credit card transactions. Uber rides. It was all there, laid out with clinical precision. The final page was the K*LLSH*T, a hotel booking confirmation. Palm Springs. 2 weeks from now. Her name. His name. 1 room. King bed. 3 nights. She hadn't just betrayed me, she was planning to do it again. No hesitation. No remorse. She hadn't even considered stopping. I closed the laptop and sat in the dark, barely breathing. For the first time since this started, I wasn't just hurt, I was angry. Not the kind of anger that explodes. Not yelling or fists through drywall. No. This was colder. Sharper. The kind that plans. She wanted to lie? She wanted to cheat? Fine. I'd give her the performance of a lifetime. The next few days were critical. I needed to stay convincing. I couldn't risk a slip-up. She needed to believe I was still in the dark, still the same trusting husband who kissed her goodbye in the morning and texted sweet nothings when she was working late. I watched her closer than ever. She was relaxed. Almost too relaxed. Like she'd convinced herself she deserved this. Like the lie had calcified into a new reality she preferred. She hummed more. She started wearing perfume again. Lavender and something else I couldn't place. Sweet and exotic. Every night she texted late into the evening, always face down on the couch or curled up in bed with the light from the screen painting her face in cold white. I started copying her data. I made a full backup of her phone one morning when she left it charging in the kitchen during a yoga session. She didn't know I had software on my laptop that could mirror everything, messages, call logs, even location history. I watched the GPS pings. They lined up with Jeremy's report perfectly. Twice in the last week, she told me she was grabbing groceries and instead driven to a bar across town. Same one as before. Both times, her car sat there for over 2 hours. I started assembling my own folder. A digital portfolio. A timeline. Texts. Images. Screen captures. I labeled everything. Organized it like a trial exhibit. I wasn't just preparing for a confrontation. I was building a case. For myself. For the truth. One night, I tested her. I mentioned Ryan casually. Hey, whatever happened to your friend Ryan? The one from that retreat thing a few years ago. She froze. Just a split second, but it was there. Her hand paused midair over her wine glass. Oh, Ryan, she said, blinking. He moved. Europe, I think. Haven't talked to him in forever. She took a sip and looked away. I smiled. Right, I said. That's what I thought. That lie sealed it. Now I wasn't just going to catch her, I was going to trap her in it. I picked a date. Next Friday. I'd tell her I had a business trip. Chicago this time. A 3-day conference. Early flight. Late return. She'd have the perfect window. She'd text Ryan. They'd meet. And I'd be waiting. I booked a room at a hotel 2 blocks from her house. Paid cash. No trail. I synced her calls to a voice recorder through an old burner phone I had from years ago, a project from grad school. I planted the device in the living room lamp base. She'd never notice. And it would pick up everything. I rehearsed the confrontation 100 times in my head. What I'd say. How I'd say it. I imagined every excuse she'd try, every fake tear, every grasp at my hand. But I wasn't doing this for drama. I wasn't doing it for revenge. I was doing it because I needed her to really see what she'd done. Friday morning came. I wore a blazer, packed a bag, kissed her goodbye like always. Love you, I said. Love you too, she replied. Her eyes sparkled. I walked out the door, got in my car, drove 5 minutes, and checked into the hotel. And I waited. By noon, she was texting him. Casey, he's gone. We've got the place. Ryan, can't wait. Missed you so bad. She was smiling again. I knew it without even seeing her. But not for long. I was about to rewrite the ending. I woke up Friday morning in a hotel bed I hadn't slept in. My body was still, but my mind had been racing all night. The blinds were shut tight. My phone buzzed at 7:32 a.m. A text from Casey. Casey, have a safe flight. I'll miss you. Red heart. I stared at the screen for a long time. Not angry, not surprised, just hollow. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened the app that mirrored her messages. By 10:15 a.m., the first one to Ryan had gone through. Casey, he's on his way to Chicago. We're good. Ryan, finally. Feels like it's been forever. Casey, I've been thinking about you nonstop. Ryan replied with a photo. A selfie. He was leaning against a parked car in a dim garage. Sunglasses on, slight smirk, trying too hard to look casual. Casey sent back a heart emoji. Then, come over after lunch? I took a deep breath and looked out the window. The weather was cool, blue-skied. Perfect. Not a day for this kind of thing. Not a day to watch the person you love walk into a trap of their own design. But I wasn't backing out. Not now. At 11:47 a.m., I left the hotel and drove across town to an outdoor shopping center. I sat at a cafe patio where no one knew me, ordered black coffee, and waited for the clock to drag its feet toward noon. At 12:33 p.m., she called him. The recorder at home picked up everything. Their voices were a little crackly. Bad cell reception or nerves, but the words came through loud and clear. Casey, you told me he was never coming back. Ryan, I didn't think he would. He always sounded so boring, stuck in his routine. I thought he was one of those guys who just fades. Casey, soft laugh, he's never suspected anything. Ryan, let's keep it that way. Casey, don't worry. I'm good at this. The venom in my chest was instant. I had never heard her voice like that. Cold, detached, practiced, good at this. That's when I knew it wasn't just passion or weakness. It wasn't one night of poor judgment or a moment of emotional confusion. It was sport. She was playing me. Worse, she thought she was winning. By 1:15 p.m., her car showed up on our driveway. I watched it through a hidden camera I'd installed that morning in the garage. She stepped out, wearing that same white blouse from a week ago, the one she'd said she barely ever wears. By 1:32 p.m., Ryan arrived. I had someone tailing him, another freelancer Jeremy recommended. He was good, quiet, unassuming, had a camera tucked into the buttons of his shirt. Followed Ryan into our neighborhood, parked 2 blocks away, walked the rest of the way in like someone out for a jog. Snapped 3 perfect photos of Ryan entering the house. Casey opened the door for him, smiling. The camera in the living room picked up their voices again. Ryan, God, I've missed you. Casey, me too. Come here. Silence for a few seconds. Then a thud, the couch probably. Another rustle. Laughter. I didn't listen to the rest. I had what I needed. At 2:04 p.m., I sent the photo. It was one I'd taken of Ryan earlier in the week. Standing outside his office building, looking over his shoulder, unaware. I sent it to Casey's phone. No caption. No context. Just the photo. Within a minute, her activity on the mirrored phone app changed. Rapid toggling between messages. A phone call to Ryan, which he didn't answer. Then another one. Then one to her sister. Nothing. Then back to Ryan. She was spiraling. At 2:11 p.m., she texted me. Casey, did you send me something just now? I didn't reply. At 2:14 p.m., another message. Casey, where are you? Are you okay? At 2:18 p.m., a third. Casey, Mark, please call me. I'm freaking out. I waited. At 2:20 p.m., she called him again. This time, he answered. The call was short. 15 seconds. Casey, he's here. Ryan, what? Casey, Mark's not in Chicago. I just got a photo of you, taken this week. He knows. Ryan, you said he'd never. Casey, he knows, Ryan. I need to go. The line went dead. She stood in our living room for 15 more minutes after that. Pacing, calling, crying. Not loudly, just that quiet, sharp breathing I'd heard once before when she broke her ankle skiing. Like she was trying not to show weakness even when she knew the damage was done. 3:03 p.m., Ryan slipped out the back. He didn't say goodbye. He didn't even look back. The last image I saw of him was through the fence cam. Walking fast, head down, already dialing someone else. Probably another woman. I didn't follow him. Didn't care where he went. He wasn't the point anymore. She was. At 4:16 p.m., I texted her. Me. I'll be home tonight. We need to talk. She didn't answer right away. At 4:31 p.m. her reply came. Casey, please. Just let me explain. Please don't come home angry. That told me everything. She didn't say it's not what you think. She didn't say there's been a misunderstanding. She didn't say you're wrong. She said please. That was her confession. I didn't text again. Instead, I packed the folder, all the evidence. Jeremy's photos. The screenshot *TS. The mirrored messages. I printed the hotel confirmation for Palm Springs and folded it neatly, sliding it into a blue envelope. I labeled it next time. At 6 p.m. I left the hotel and drove home. The lights were on. The house looked the same. But it wasn't. I stepped inside. Casey was in the kitchen, standing like someone waiting to be executed, arms folded, head low, mascara smudged. Mark, she whispered. Can we please? I held up my hand. Living room. She followed. I placed the folder on the coffee table. Sat across from her. Didn't speak. She reached out with trembling fingers and opened it. The first page was the note, "You drive me wild." The next, a photo of her and Ryan in the hotel hallway. Then screenshot *TS. Then the Palm Springs booking. With each turn of the page, her face crumbled. She didn't deny it. She didn't say a word. Just sat there, shrinking. I leaned forward. I want you out, I said. You have 3 days. Mark, please, I know I messed up. I know I hurt you, but we can fix this. I stared at her. 3 days. She stood, arms shaking. You don't have to throw away our whole life over this. I made a mistake. One mistake. I laughed once cold. One. I tapped the folder. That's a pattern. She collapsed onto the couch, sobbing now. I love you, she said. I swear I still love you. No, I said. You loved who I was when I didn't know the truth. I stood. You made your choice, Casey. Now you live with it. And I walked upstairs, door shutting behind me like a final word. I came downstairs the next morning to find Casey packing. No tears, no theatrics, just silence. When I sat across from her, she tried one last time. We can fix this, she said, voice shaking. It doesn't have to end like this. I slid the folder across the table one more time, then looked her dead in the eye. It already did. She broke then, crying, screaming that I had ruined her life. But she was the one who lit the match. I let her say everything she needed to say. Then I said the only thing that mattered, we're done. I walked away before she could beg again. Her mask didn't fall. It shattered. A month later, I was living alone, finalizing paperwork. The house was quiet but not empty. It felt like mine again. Casey lost more than me, her job, her image. Word got around. Karma worked quicker than I expected. Meanwhile, I started writing again. At a local literary meetup, I met Ellie. She smiled like she meant it. When she asked who my favorite author was, I realized something. This wasn't just the end of a betrayal, it was the start of something better. I'm not healing for her. I'm healing for me. And for the first time in a long time, I feel free.